Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm coming to you with a video all about my most anticipated book releases of 2018. 2017 had some fantastic book releases. There were plenty that I was really excited for, and so many that I read that I really loved. But I have to say that 2018 so far looks like it's going to be an incredible year for book releases. There are so many books that I am highly anticipating that I just cannot wait to read. And today I have a list of actually just a few of those because I know that there are definitely way more and it'll be too much to put in one video. So I'll probably do another video like this coming in the fall and talk about more of the fall and end of the year releases. But for now, these are the main book releases that I'm most anticipating. So without any further ado, let's just get into the books. The first book on my list is actually one that is already out, and that is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I don't know too much about this book, but all I know is that it's about this girl whose grandmother is the author of these fairy tales, and one day her grandmother dies, and then her mother is kidnapped by one of the supernatural creatures from her grandmother's stories, and that just sounds really good to me. This book has also been getting a lot of praise, and I've been hearing about it for about a year or over a year now, and so many people are really loving it, and it sounds like something I'm also really going to love, so I cannot wait for it to come out so I can give it a try and let you all know my thoughts. The next book on my list is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and this book comes out on March 6th. I know very little about the actual summary of this book, but I do know that it is a West African-inspired dark fantasy that's been said to be loved by fans of Leigh Bardugo and Sabaa Tahir, and I love both of them so much, and this just sounds like something I'm also really going to love. I love fantasy. I love that it's an Own Voices novel. I've never read any fantasy that's been inspired by West African culture, and all three of those things sound like an amazing combination for a fantastic book that I cannot wait to read. The next book on my list that I'm highly anticipating is The Price Guide to the Occult by Leslye Walton. Leslye Walton is the author of The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and she hasn't released a book since her debut novel. This one came out in, I think, 2014 or 2015, a very long time ago. But because I love Ava Lavender so much, I have been waiting for Leslye Walton to release another book, and she finally is this year, and I cannot wait for it. The summary for this book is actually kind of confusing, and I don't think I fully understand it, apart from the fact that it's basically about a family of witches. And who needs to know anything else, because that just sounds perfect already. Witches mixed with Leslye Walton's beautiful writing sounds like the perfect combination, and I just need this book right now. I think this one also might be similar to Ava Lavender in that it's also a generational story about this family, and I love that aspect of Ava Lavender, so if that's also in here, I'm really going to enjoy this one too. I just know I'm gonna love this book because I love her writing so much, and it's been so long since I've read anything by her, and I need more right now. The next book release that I'm highly anticipating is Tyler Johnson Was Here by J. Coles, and this book is set to release on March 20th. This book follows the story of these twins named Marvin and Tyler, and Marvin goes to a party with Tyler one day, and then there's a shooting at this party, and then the next day Tyler is nowhere to be found. And then Tyler's body ends up turning up and he is found dead, and then a video is leaked online where it turns out that he was actually shot by a police officer. This book is about police brutality and race relations, and it sounds like it's going to be extremely deep and very moving and something that I think will be necessary to read. It's gotten so much advanced praise as well, and I've just been hearing fantastic things, and I just can't wait to get my hands on a copy of this book and read it because I know it's going to be extremely impactful and so important. The next book on my list is another one that I actually already own an ARC of, and I'm so excited because I'm reading this so soon, and that is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. And this book is set to release on March 20th. This is a magical realism novel that follows the story of this girl whose mother commits suicide, and she is convinced that her mother turned into a bird. I know that sounds very deep and sad and also very kind of strange, but like I said, it's a magical realism novel, so it kind of blurs the line between reality and magic. Leah, the main character, ends up then traveling to Taiwan to visit her mother's family because she's half Taiwanese, and while she's there she ends up discovering some secrets about her own family and also trying to deal with and come to terms with the events of her mother's suicide. It sounds like it's going to be an extremely wonderful, deeply emotional book, and something that I definitely think I will really enjoy. It's also fairly long for a standalone, and I'm actually very excited about that because it means that there's going to be a lot of story and hopefully a lot of depth to it, so I cannot wait to dive into this one. The next book that I'm highly anticipating is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli, and this book is set to release on April 24th. This book is kind of like a companion/sequel sequel to Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, which is one of the books I read in 2017 and really, really loved. I've also read The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I loved that book as well, so I'm highly anticipating her third novel. Like I said, this one is a sequel to Simon, and it follows Leah, one of the characters from Simon, and we get to see Simon in this book as well. I don't really know anything else about the actual plot of it. I don't want to know. I just know that it has the characters that I love already, so I'm excited to go and revisit them. I'm just so excited for this release because it's coming out like a month after the Love, Simon movie comes out too, so there's just going to be so much Simon and Becky Albertalli in my life, and that makes for a good life. The next book on my list is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, who is the author of The Hate U Give, and that book comes out on May 1st. I'm holding up The Hate U Give because we don't have a cover for On the Come Up yet, unfortunately. Quite honestly, I don't know anything about the actual story of On the Come Up yet at all. I don't want to know anything about it because I didn't know too much about The Hate U Give before I started reading it either, and I really liked not knowing too much about it, so I haven't read a summary. Sorry, I'm not going to read you a summary about what it's about. I just want to be surprised by it. This is just another book that I know I'm going to enjoy because I will always love whatever Angie Thomas writes. The next book on my list is actually a book that's already out, but there is a new cover and new edition of this book being released, and that is none other than Vicious by V.E. Schwab in this new gorgeous cover, which you know I have to get. As you all know, I am the biggest Victoria Schwab fan. She is one of my favorite, if not my favorite author. I love all of her books that I've ever read, and Vicious is one of my favorite ones. And another book that I'm actually anticipating this year that's on this list is Vengful, the sequel to Vicious. That book is being released in September of this year. I don't think there's a specific date yet, but so far the rough estimate is going to be September. So because Vengeful is coming out this year, they're releasing new covers, so Vicious and Vengeful will have these beautiful covers in this gorgeous red color that I'm so excited for. I've talked about Vicious so many times. I absolutely adore that book, and I know that I'm going to fall in love with Vengeful as well. It's gonna tear me apart, but I am so ready for it. But yeah, I just cannot wait for this book to come out. I want it in my hands right now. I want to be reading it in this moment, and I don't want to wait until September. It's too far away. The next book on my list is A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir, and this is the third book in the Ember and the Ashes series. And Ember and the Ashes has quickly become one of my favorite series of all time. I've only read the first book, but I have started reading the second one, and I know I'm going to enjoy that one too. And I just love this series. I love this world. I love these characters, and I am so excited for the third book to come out because I need it immediately. If you haven't heard of this series, it's essentially inspired by the Roman Empire, and we have this continent that has basically been taken over by this empire, and then there's a rebellion that is trying to work against them and take them out of power because they've been so cruel and oppressive. And then in the midst of all of that, we have a girl named Leah who poses as a slave to infiltrate the empire, and then we have a soldier for the empire, and the two of them end up meeting, and there's romance, and there's a lot of other stuff, and it's really, really good, and I highly recommend that you read it. So yeah, as you can tell, I really, really love this series, and I just need this next book immediately because I know I'm also going to love it, but I also really need to read the second book first. The next book on my list is actually another book by Victoria Schwab. Are we surprised? But I'm also really excited because that means she has two new books coming out this year, and that book is City of Ghosts. All I really know about this book is that it's about this girl who can see ghosts, and her best friend is actually a ghost, and it takes place in Edinburgh in Scotland. And that just sounds like a really, really fun time, especially when I think about the fact that it's written by Victoria Schwab, and the writing is going to be beautiful, and the storytelling is going to be so meaningful, and I'm just going to love it. I'm just very happy that my favorite author has two books coming out this year because I know it's going to be a fantastic reading year. I just hate that both of them are coming out in the fall, which means I have to get all the way through half of this year with no more Victoria Schwab in my life, and I need it all now. But yeah, a story about ghosts that takes place in Scotland sounds spooky and eerie and perfect for the fall time, so I understand why it's coming out then. But just as with all of these other books, I can't wait for this book to come out, and I just know that I'm going to love it. The next book on my list that I'm highly anticipating is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This, from what I understand, is like a companion novel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I read The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue last year, and I fell completely in love with it. It's one of my favorite books that I read last year. It was so funny and so emotional and just so perfect. And in this book, we get to follow Monty's sister Felicity as she gets to go on some fun adventures, I'm assuming, because where we left off in the last book seems like her story is going in a fantastic direction that I'm so excited for. I loved Felicity in Gentleman's Guide. She was one of my favorite characters, so I'm so excited that she's getting her own book and we get to see her own story. Felicity is also Ace, so we're getting a story with a main character with Ace rep, and that's also fantastic, and just everything about this sounds so perfect and I can't wait for it to come out. I feel like I just keep repeating myself with all of these books, but honestly, I just cannot wait for all of these because they all sound so good. And finally, we are on to the very last book on my list of releases that I'm highly anticipating. And this one, I can't believe is actually coming out so late in the year. Usually this author's books come out way earlier on in the year, usually in the summertime, but this time we have to wait all the way until December. And that is For Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare, the third book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. This book comes out on December 4th, and like I said, we have to wait actually like 6 more months for this release than we did for the last one, but I think that's because there's also some other book that Cassandra Clare is currently working on, or some kind of novella bind-up that might be coming out earlier this year. I'm not 100% sure, but even though we have a long wait until December, I am still so excited for this book. I loved Lord of Shadows. It was one of my favorite Shadowhunter books that I've read. It was just so well done. There was so much to that story. It was gripping and emotional and just fantastic, so I cannot wait to see what she does in Queen of Air and Darkness because it's gonna tear me to pieces. I know it. I'm also excited for this trilogy to conclude because then it also means that next year we're gonna be moving on to The Last Hours, which is like the sequel to the Infernal Devices, which are the ones that I'm really excited for. I love the Mortal Instruments series, as you all know, but I truly adore the Infernal Devices series. It's one of my favorite series ever. I just love the setting. I love that world and those characters, so I can't wait for The Last Hours to come out too. But the Dark Artifices has definitely also taken me by surprise, and I've fallen way more in love with it than I ever expected to, so I can't wait for this final book in this trilogy because it's gonna destroy me, but I'm ready for it. Alright, so that is it for my list of most anticipated 2018 book releases. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any books on this list that I mentioned that you're also highly anticipating, and also let me know if there are any other books that I didn't mention on this list that you're highly anticipating, because I would love to hear what other books that are coming out this year. There are more than just the books that I mentioned in this video, like there are at least 10 more that I could name, but I just kind of wanted to tailor this list a little bit just so it doesn't get too long. If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always, but thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!